I have to admit, when I got started with the Galaxy S25 Ultra right here, I was excited to try out the handful of new features that I did talk about in my last video. But when you really think about it, this phone is really similar to the previous generation, so what could truly be different this time around? Well, you can color me pleasantly surprised with my experience so far, even just hours after taking this phone out of its box. And here's why. Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? Here is my Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, day one. As always, I want you to know that I'm grateful that you're here kicking it with me as I get the S25 Ultra out of its thin box that only really houses the SIM tool and a USB-C charging cable, and that's about it. Funny enough, I have to charge the phone because my unit ended up not coming with literally any charge at all. This is a good time actually to start off this day one video because I can plug this thing in, see how long it will take to charge, and as my Anker Prime charger is showing me over here, I am charging at 41.2 watts, 45 watts being the max charging speed that they do have on the Samsung Galaxy ones. We usually don't see anything any higher than that. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and test out. I'll give it like half an hour and see how far I get with the charge. Then I can finally get into the phone and get things set up. 45 watt wired charging may not sound the best compared to some other phones, but it seemed enough to get me to 40% in those 10 or so minutes, which is not too shabby. Anyway, as we get started here, I wanted to let you know that the pre-orders for the entire Galaxy S25 lineup are live, and I have links in the description and in the pinned comment below so you can snag one for yourself. If you do use those links, thank you, because doing so really helps my channel out a lot. And while you're at it, please consider subscribing to my channel and hitting the like buttons on videos that you're vibing with, like this one. And with that, we're teed up, so let's start using this phone. I know, this isn't tea, but it's really good, trust me. The phone probably came to me drained of its battery because my review unit was outfitted with an activated SIM for testing. That T-Mobile network ended up being my main way of getting apps and all of my games installed on here as opposed to the inconsistent Wi-Fi that was in the hotel. So a whole lot of jumping in and out of the Play Store to download everything except Marvel Snap for now. That ensued, and it was here that I was getting treated to the new edition of Samsung's take on Android, One UI 7. I didn't use the beta software on my other Galaxy devices, so a lot of this is actually pretty fresh for me, and it's been doing really great so far. It's really the little things that are appreciated here, like the cleaner home screen, the vertical scroll in the app drawer, global search at the bottom of that app drawer, which lets me do some quick web searches so I don't have to have the Google bar on my home screen for the most part, and the notifications now being separated from the quick settings. You see, by default, a swipe down anywhere on the home screen brings up the notifications that are still in this rather large pill-like setup right here. Still a little bit bloated, but I get it. But if you swipe right on a blank spot here, it gets over to the quick settings, and thus they're pretty easy to get to. I do wish, though, that the settings button up here wasn't so damn high up, because that level of hand gymnastics is still asking a little too much of me. Overall, though, I found the animations and the smoothness to be particularly good on here, both because of One UI 7, but also because of the Snapdragon 8 Elite 4 Galaxy. Throughout this day one video, which actually comprises about 2 or 3 days directly after Samsung Unpacked and my subsequent unboxing, I've only run into maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 graphical glitches, very minor ones, while responding to comments on YouTube of my last video. Aside from that, everything has felt really snappy, and I'm feeling really confident that they will remain as such for quite a while. A few final things I'll share here. The display is still one of the most vibrant out there. It's still able to go super dim too for an always-on display that should look good with a good wallpaper, which I'll find before my next video. And finally, I have kept the out-of-the-box settings of the full HD Plus resolution, not Quad HD Plus, and I have kept the adaptive refresh rate that goes up to 120 Hz when needed. To be fair though, my usual games usually don't get anywhere near that frame rate. So while this is not a full-on camera test, I am of course going to show a bunch of camera samples here. The camera software adds another point to the smooth and practical changes that One UI 7 has brought to this phone, with the interface feeling easier than ever to navigate. Most of the settings that you might want to tweak in the main photo and video modes are now nestled in a pop-up menu right next to the shutter, so I don't always have to use both hands. I do tend to just go for the exposure slider so I can crank the EV down a tad in most scenarios. The main core experience is familiar here though, with the far zoom being a main feature. Samsung did add in a smooth zoom slider that gives you kind of a real camcorder vibe while recording video, but the changes between the lenses is still pretty noticeable. The main addition here though is the 50 megapixel ultra-wide camera that gives some nicer macro shots when you actually want to do those kinds of pictures, although I am happy to use it for other purposes. The autofocus and the 50 megapixel, the better sensor overall, does make it so that vlogging shots like this, being able to show your surroundings and cool things in the background like this huge mural that includes quite a few musical acts, this is what I would look forward to when it comes to the ultra-wide. Just being able to vlog on the go, and so far, at least coming from the phone, I gotta put it on a computer, but the footage is looking pretty dang good. The other thing that's new here is log recording, which is on the opposite corner of the shutter button, which itself is a subtle signaling that this is a more pro feature. Log recording flattens out all of the saturation and the contrast in videos, which tends to give the video file more data and dynamic range to work with when you're manually adding all of those elements back in. Working with log video from scratch is often pretty intimidating because color accuracy suddenly becomes your responsibility, but lookup tables, or LUTs, can do the conversion automatically based on known color spaces relative to the flat log footage. That's all to say that if you do use log recording, the Gallery app can just apply a LUT itself with a simple press of a button. For us editor types though, there will be a LUT available on the Samsung developer website, and that's something I think I'll use more often because so far the Galaxy S25 Ultra does seem like a phone that I can use more often for my YouTube video production. I would use log recording, throw the LUT on, and then make adjustments from there. Now, because my first day of using the phone wasn't really a full day right after the unboxing, battery testing actually really started the next morning, after plugging the phone in to top it up to 100% around 9 a.m. Samsung still had plenty of stuff for us to do during the trip, and that started with a forum regarding Samsung Health and how AI can help make health tracking easier. It was an interesting topic that also became the focus of an interview Jaime Rivera and I did soon after with Dr. Han Pak, who was on that panel. By the way, I was at the very back of the room filming some of this panel at 5x zoom, which uses that 50 megapixel telephoto lens. As I would learn more later on, going beyond the 5x up to around 10x remains the most practical use of the zoom in my opinion, because anything after that starts to get noisy at best and then becomes straight up watercolored otherwise. But that productive morning that included sound recording that health forum and then transcribing and summarizing it led to a local taco spot for lunch, one that was given the Gemini AI seal of approval as some of the best tacos in San Jose. A light food coma after lunch, and it was time for a fun way to end the trip. A long bus ride to the stadium meant I had time to pass. No better way to do that than with a game on this lovely display. I did fail that particular round of Balatro though. It's here that I want to talk through a couple of things that I'm sure you're thinking. First off, no, the Now Brief and the Now Bar have not really been a focus of my usage during this day one period of time. And while the Now Bar in particular is proving to be useful for like a shortcut to media controls, if I have something playing in the background, this becomes a media control bar. That's kind of nice. The Now Brief in particular, on the other hand, apparently needs more time to learn details about my usage before it can serve up some extra useful information. Now, bear in mind that the Brief and the Bar, like most first generation Samsung innovations, for now only focuses on information relevant to a specific set of apps and services. Now, the second thing I'm sure you're wondering, what the hell happened with the S Pen? Well, taking the Bluetooth LE out of this S Pen meant that the fancy air gesture, let's call them wand controls, are all gone, both from the camera control and from the phone in general. No matter how you slice it, this is a bit of a bummer because a cool feature these phones used to have is no longer here. Samsung does claim that these features were used by like 1% of users, and it seems that that 1% has been showing up in my comment sections over the last few days. I empathize with all of you, trust me, but I also have to be honest. Not once did I use the S Pen during the period of time that makes up this day one video. That's not to say it isn't useful and that I wouldn't ever use it, but in basically all the scenarios that I need the Galaxy S25 Ultra to serve me, the S Pen never really felt like the game changer or essential that was needed. This is kind of true for most Ultra devices just for my usage, and I know a bunch of you out there actually do use it a lot, so let me know what those uses are in the comments down below. Again, it's not to say the S Pen isn't useful. Precision selections and quick drawing in areas like AI photo editing make perfect sense. Using Using it to draw out some elements to remove things from this picture is a great example. They're just situations for me that are far and few between. Yeah, that's right. We're doing a pretty fun thing today. Here we are at the Chase Center in San Francisco, up in the Bay Area, checking out the Golden State Warriors versus the Bulls, Chicago Bulls. Okay, being more of a Lakers fan, but also less informed of the season overall, I did take a moment on that bus ride to talk to Gemini AI once again to ask some questions ahead of the night's NBA game. The Warriors game provided a good opportunity to get more zoom shots, especially with Steph Curry, as he used the first half of the game warming up before dropping three-pointers all over the second. I did try to use burst shots for my zoomed in photos, so now I have a bunch of photos in the gallery at this point. Anyway, the Warriors handily won this game, but as I alluded to before, the same can't really be said for the Galaxy S25 Ultra when hitting the 30 times zoom range and farther. Now don't get me wrong, here in the US, there aren't that many choices to get this amount of range from a smartphone camera with this decent quality. Imagine having this phone with you while sitting in the middle section of a game like this or a concert for your favorite artist. I do think that if you're able to keep around the 10 times range max, you'll get the best results from the zoom range, but more thoughts on the cameras will come later when I bring the phone out for more camera testing. Ending this actual first full day with the Galaxy S25 Ultra saw me doing a Telegram video call with the girlfriend, and then I headed to bed way later than I should have. But I was feeling pretty good about how the day went, both in and out of the phone. So with all that in mind, let's go ahead and get into the battery stats for this day. This is the first full day that I've been able to use the Galaxy S25 Ultra with the mixed usage that I have been describing, and here's the result. 4.5 hours about of screen on time, which is actually fairly normal for the kind of usage that I have on a typical busy day. But I have to give Samsung a lot of credit for how they actually show the battery stats in One UI 7, including that top line right there that says that I have used 88% in a total of 13 hours and 45 minutes. That is a good metric to have, because while screen on time is something that we tend to look at to tell us exactly how well a battery will last throughout a power user type day, really it's that percentage up there over the course of an entire day that really tells the whole story. And while I am trying to give my thoughts after these days are done on the Galaxy S25 Ultra in general, I do want to say in this moment, after this first full day of actually using it, things are looking pretty good on here. I have been quite impressed with the performance, now the battery life, and just overall the feel, both outside in the design and inside with One UI 7. I've been impressed with it all so far. It's been a reliable workhorse, and that's something that we could say about a lot of the flagship smartphones over the last few years from Samsung, but now the refinements, as we say every single year, this is exactly the kind of phone that maybe last year's phone should have been, and I think this year that is true for this Galaxy S25 Ultra more than ever. And finally, I headed back home from Samsung Unpacked, keeping busy and seeing how far the Galaxy S25 Ultra could keep up with it all. And so there you have it, my day one with the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. Plenty of stuff happened in this time frame that was actually around maybe 2.5 days, but I already feel like the phone has supported my work and play pretty dang well. And that's what's so pleasantly surprising. What is undoubtedly a familiar and maybe too similar offering compared to last year still manages to feel really current and, dare I say it, a little fresh. This is with the understanding that a lot of the One UI specific features will be coming to the S24 Ultra at some point, so maybe the upgrade isn't going to be worth it when you just look at it year by year. But if you're coming from generations further back, I do think the S25 Ultra is worth a look, and maybe you will be pleasantly surprised too. Once again, remember to check out the links I have below to get in on the pre-order deals and get a Samsung Galaxy S25 for yourself. Let me know your thoughts so far on this phone in the comments downstairs. And finally, please hit that like button if you enjoyed this day one, and subscribe to my channel so you know when my next videos are coming out. From there though, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again today. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.